Good morning to you all. Thank you for attending this important regional event, which brings together stakeholders together to find sustainable business solutions in Mid Wales. Tackling climate change is a priority for Welsh Government, setting out ambitious plans for Wales to become net zero by 2050. Businesses have a crucial role to play in meeting these ambitions. Welsh Government are supporting companies through providing advice and support through Business Wales service. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. So I'm Rob Newman from Business Wales, so here to provide the kind of support for businesses. Business Wales have decarbonisation advisors. Daniel, who's based over there, is available to provide support to businesses to adopt or improve environmental strategies and work with businesses towards creating a resource efficient and resilient business. Advisors can help businesses reduce overheads and increase profitability, enhancing their business resilience practices and brand with the customers, employees and the local community, improving the workplace and also the local environment. So Welsh Government is committed to working with people alongside partners to support Mid Wales businesses on their journey towards net zero. Today's a great opportunity to engage with others to create connections and find sustainable solutions. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Rob. So my name is Carwyn Evans, as Brian introduced me. So myself and Gemma will give you a quick overview now of why we're here today, and a couple of slides. Promise today's not going to be a death by PowerPoint too much, but why are we here? I think Brian gave a good overview in terms of, climate change. Net zero is no longer an optional. You'll have a lot of questions in terms of costs, in terms of what technologies should we go for. There's a big conversation around hydrogen currently, ammonia, all the opportunities. But the point of today is really to try and have, a lot of like-minded people, government, and thanks to Rob for giving the Welsh Government overview of why, from a policy perspective and a devolved government perspective, why this work is important, but also in terms of yourselves as businesses who are here today, and private individuals. You will have those questions in terms of, do I buy an electric car? Do I buy an air source heat pump? Brian has an electric car and I have an air source heat pump, so I can talk to you about consumers' perspective on that anyway. But I think it's cutting through a lot of the noise, I suppose. And Mid Wales, we are home to a lot of innovative businesses, but also world-leading organisations. And I'm just looking around the exhibitor stall in the back there, and particularly the Centre for Alternative Technology, internationally renowned in terms of the work that they do. But we've got a lot of knowledge in this room around us, and to try and sort of break down the barriers and have the conversations around some of the solutions to try and tackle this, because as we said, it's no longer an optional. In terms of the morning and the sort of early afternoon, we'll sort of try and run through as quick as we can in terms of the presentations, but please do ask questions. Pretty informal, although it's a formal setting, but if you've got a hand up, and if you've got a burning question, I promise you somebody else will have that question in the room as well. So there's no such thing as a stupid question, or follow up with the speakers at lunch or after the event as well. Colleagues are also joining us online via the medium of Teams. I apologise to those, we don't have any online translation available, so bear with us, but Barbara will do her best to look after you. And again, if there's questions online as well, we'll be able to field them as well. As sort of just very quick housekeeping rules. There's no fire alarms scheduled, but if one goes, out through the fire exit or marked, exit wherever you'll be when the fire alarm goes, and convene in the car park. Toilets, you might have found them already. They're just hidden behind this screen there. And as we've said, we are recording the event as well, so it'll be available online afterwards. And if you are struggling with connectivity, there is free Wi-Fi. There's no password required as well. As set out on the screens, I won't run through it too much. You've seen the agenda already. So basically a bit of presentations, panel discussions this morning, have some lunch, breakout rooms in the afternoon, and then a site tour led by Geraint and his team of this fantastic site and facility which is hosting us today. It's just exploded for me, not changing. There we are. Going to run very quickly through the background of growing Mid Wales. So as our leader, as Brian sort of explained, we do work in partnership as part of Mid Wales with Ceredigion and Powys County Councils. It's effectively in response to what's happening in Cardiff Capital Region, Swansea Bay City Deal, North Wales Economic Ambition Board. Mid Wales is also working together and has a voice on a national platform, working with Welsh Government and UK Government in terms of effectively articulating what our needs and opportunities are in Mid Wales. But we also deliver quite a few things as well. We've got a Mid Wales growth deal, the £110 million deal, and that's been running for a couple of years now, but is starting to bear fruits now and looking to some early project delivery this summer. And we also have a regional skills partnership, and Diane and his team are here today, again, looking at what the business needs of skills are in Mid Wales, what the needs and opportunities of our businesses are, and try to influence provision effectively down the line. We do have to do things differently in Mid Wales. You're all successful businesses, but sometimes that can be despite the public sector and how we structure ourselves sometimes. So the whole point of these structures and conversations we have is to identify, right, how can we better shape ourselves sort of next year or a couple of years down the line to make you even more successful or pick up on where we are weaker. And as I said, we deliver as well something called the Shared Prosperity Fund. So in Ceredigion, we've got the Cynaliadwy Fund for businesses as well. So quick plug for that is still running and on Ceredigion County Council's website. And if you're a Powys-based business, there's a business support grant available there as well. So just very quickly, why energy? And as the leader said, we've got economic priorities in Mid Wales. We've got 8 of them. They align quite strongly with the Welsh Government's regional economic framework and also the UK Government's plans. But basically, it's about identifying that Mid Wales, we're not an economic basket case, although productivity figures haven't moved in the last sort of half a century. Jobs growth has been tracking, and we have got key vital economic sectors, in our region, and that they're important to effectively acknowledge that. We have got barriers, we've got challenges in terms of infrastructure. We talk about digital infrastructure quite often. We talk about road and rail infrastructure. And we talk about, the lack of support networks and support for businesses sometimes. And we've got colleagues from Business Wales, and we work with them quite closely in terms of designing the shape and architecture of those programmes to ensure that they meet the needs of our businesses in Mid Wales. Because we're not Cardiff, we're not Swansea, and we should be okay with that. But we need to work harder at making things work sometimes. And we've got that regional economic strategy effectively that sets those priority areas. And energy is a key part of that because effectively Mid Wales, we punch above our weight in terms of generation potential and capacity. We've got high renewable energy generation and possibly controversially more opportunities in the pipeline. But again, how do we tap into that? How do we make that an economic opportunity in Mid Wales? Where can we do more? And if we've got the expertise and knowledge in the region, in the institutions and organisations, so we've got examples like Geraint this afternoon will take us around the farm in terms of what businesses are actually applying. Well, what more can we do as public sector, and how can we further turbocharge that? Without me rambling any further, I'll quickly segue into Gemma, who'll talk about her work as part of this. Yeah.
Bore da pawb, Gemma Delafield Dewey. Good morning, everyone. My name's Gemma Delafield. I'm the Regional Energy Lead for Growing Mid Wales. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an overview of one of the surveys that we sent out last year, and one of the reasons that we are hosting this event today. So we put out the Net Zero survey last August to understand what businesses thought were the main opportunities and challenges facing businesses within Mid Wales to decarbonise. We had 78 businesses respond, and thank you to everyone in the room who did fill in that survey. So we wanted to get an idea of where businesses were and currently at in terms of their decarbonisation journey. And we have lots of businesses that have already done measures like installing LED lighting, looking at energy efficiency like insulation. Several businesses have been looking at training opportunities. So how can they help their staff consider how they can decarbonise more generally? Looking at procurement, so how can we reduce supply chain emissions of those businesses? And then there were a couple of businesses that had explored more innovative solutions in terms of electric vehicles, heat pumps, solar PV, wind, biomass, and battery storage, as Carwyn was mentioned. And Bargoed is obviously a great example of what businesses have done in the region. We also asked some questions of what businesses have got planned next. So 40% of businesses who replied to the survey said that they had decarbonisation or energy projects planned. So there's a lot of businesses that don't have anything planned at the moment. The businesses that did have projects planned were very in the early stages of that, so in the kind of conceptual stages of planning, and needed some help to get to delivery. And there were clearly a few businesses within the region that are very innovative, very far along in this journey already, but looking to do even more. So businesses highlighted the kind of following key challenges to get further along in their decarbonisation journey. Firstly, there were some businesses that their understanding of net zero and how it might impact their business was quite low. They were really keen to learn more, but generally speaking, businesses within the region had a pretty good understanding of net zero. We had some comments back around the decarbonisation support that currently exists, some people highlighting that it's too generic, it isn't tailored enough to SMEs and micro businesses, and we really want to hear from you today around some of these concerns and get into the nitty-gritty more. And some businesses simply saying, I want to do something in this area, but I don't even know who to approach. So we've got a load of really excellent exhibitors in the room today to hopefully start those kind of conversations. Unsurprisingly, financial support was listed as the top barrier to decarbonising. A lot of people highlighting that without financial support, they were really struggling to kind of kick step into that delivery phase. Skills came up as one of the key barriers. So we've got David from the Regional Skills Partnership, who will be talking a bit about that. And grid constraints. So as we've already kind of alluded to, we know we have grid capacity constraints here in the region. We have whole session associated with grid. So we're going to hear from the energy networks to figure out how we can move forward in both the short term and the long term. So hopefully these resonate with you, but do shout if there's anything that is missing from that. So finally, leaving you with a positive message, the survey really highlighted that there are a lot of opportunities within the region to help businesses move towards decarbonisation. A lot of people highlighting that there is the potential to build more renewable generation locally, to use that electricity locally to help boost economic growth and help decarbonise businesses. And one of the kind of key themes that's come out from this survey, but also the conversations that I've been having with individual businesses, is that there is that opportunity to come together, businesses, public sector, community energy groups, and consider how we might be able to look at these in more detail. A quick flag, so one of the key parts of my role is supporting both Ceredigion and Powys County Councils with their local area energy plans, which figure out how do we get from where we are today to a decarbonised future by 2050. They're going to be published in the coming months and will hopefully provide a really good evidence base to move us forward in this direction. So just to kind of echo what's already been said, I really encourage you to speak to the exhibitors we have in the room today, network with other businesses, figure out if you share similar challenges, highlight your key concerns. We're very much listening. I'm really open to working with you all to move forward on this agenda. We are going to have a feedback survey at the end, so you can highlight if you found this event useful, what sorts of events you might find useful going forward. And yeah, just a flag, this is very much part of an ongoing conversation. It definitely doesn't end today, and we're really looking forward to speaking with you. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.
Diolch, Gemma. There's a lot of work that's going on. And that takes us neatly now into our next session. So if I can invite the speakers and the panelists for the next session. So that's Daniel, Geraint, Dai, and also I think Sandy's joining on the panel. So the format of this session is effectively we've got a series of 3 presentations in quick succession. I'll sort of hover around on the side here, but once the presentations are done, if you've got any questions, we'll have a bit of a facilitated discussion then. So with this session, please hold your questions until that sort of end of the slot. So if you can invite colleagues to join us, that's okay. Take a seat here, and I think Busnes Wales first of all up first. Diolch.
Shmai pawb, bore da, and thank you very much for coming today. So I'm Daniel Thomas and I'm a decarbonisation advisor for Business Wales. Previously, I was a sustainable engineering consultant down in London before moving up to Anglesey. Business advice, tendering, equality, exports, skills, mentoring, and we also provide a wide range of workshops to help train and to help engage with SMEs around Wales to help bring forward any advice and information that they may need to help start a business or even grow. And then just any general business support, so from entrepreneurial to ICT to networking and business planning and growth. Business Wales, we've got all sorts of advisors all over Wales that can provide all the support necessary to help you as a business grow and develop. So that's the end of the, we got one more, sorry. So mentoring as well, we also provide to help businesses start their journey and push forward to becoming a profitable and excellent SME in Wales. So a bit more on the decarbonisation side. So we would help SMEs around Wales to decarbonise by advising on what grant opportunities there are, what other funding opportunities there are. We provide something called the Green Growth Pledge, which is quite a simple document businesses can fill out, stating what their pledges are going forward to wanting to decarbonise and help their ambitions to reach net zero. And the Green Growth Pledge, it's recognised by the Welsh Government, it's recognised by local authorities. So when you're going for grants and any other funding opportunities that are available, it's recognised as a document which states your sustainability commitments, and it's also something that you can show to your customers going forward, showing off your sustainability commitments and what you're doing as a business to help decarbonise. We also offer something called the carbon calculator. So you can go to a lot of consultancies which would charge quite a bit of money to complete your carbon emissions for you. But we have a carbon calculator that will be released online soon for SMEs to fill out. And essentially, it can calculate your scope 1, 2, and 3 footprint, depending on the data that you have available. A lot of SMEs are struggling to find the correct scope 3 data, so your logistics, your upstream, your downstream data. So the first step before even calculating emissions is getting that data. And then from there, we can help calculate your emissions and provide a carbon reduction plan templates to help businesses begin their journey to net zero and state what their goals are, what your actions are going to be in the next few years to help that business decarbonise. We're seeing a lot at the moment, a lot of tenders coming out that require a SME to have a carbon reduction plan and some sort of carbon emissions baseline. So to have that carbon reduction plan and the carbon emissions that we can provide, we can help the business state what their emissions are, what their plan can be. We can help provide information on what sorts of technology that are out there and what grants that are available that isn't too easy to find or isn't easy to hear of. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Geraint, thanks. Yeah, Geraint. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Geraint Thomas, here of Bargoed Farm. I introduce Rhiannon, our general manager, whatever. I'd like to welcome you all here, first of all. It's lovely to see so many people here in this first meeting of hopefully will be quite a few. Being carbon neutral, whatever, is very much in our heart. and the way we perform our business and going forward. Now we've got the slides here. We'll have to just try and connect in with them. What we've done, if you see here, we've got a caravan and camping site. We've got hot tubs on them. We got the Moody Cow, which is the bistro farm shop. The Moody Calf play barn, the skid board here, the events building, the motel, 11 rooms, motel, all air conditioned, whatever rooms. We have the fishing lake. We put fish in there, I think 2020. Anyway, we have this, can I see? Yeah. Bargoed Farm, committed to become carbon neutral business. We are carbon neutral. We have solar panels. We have the battery storage and we have biofuel generators. The aim on that, just a little bit, and we see that slide, we are hoping to take it further along. I'm hoping very much to be one of the first in the area to be trial on hydrogen and try and perfect the carbon neutralism. Yes, the frustration in trying to get there, it is immense. We started this role in 2018. Yeah, it was me trying to do some research, and it hasn't been an easy one. I remember talking to Business Wales and whoever we could get advice from at that particular time. And every year we have we put solar panels on, and try to increase. We have at the moment we got 300 kilowatt of solar panels. We have, as you could see there, the battery storage. That is a pilot tech from Cynghorydd. Basically, it is the second of the battery storage in from China last year. It's only the second cube in, I should say. The other one's in Cornwall. That's 450 kilowatt. We'll be adding another 200 kilowatt to it now in the spring. Indeed, as you can see as we go along, we intend to put more battery storage in. We intend to put more solar, the hydrogen, whatever. And as you can see there, the difference between the grid and the renewables, and it's quite immense. That's the summer usage, which is approximately £104,000 in difference between the renewable and the grid. And then the next slide will show you the difference in the winter usage of 221. What I will say is that on the solar panels, it's very interesting. I've got the grid on my phone that shows me the usage of the solar panels every minute of the day. And even in the middle of the winter, from 11 o'clock till 3 o'clock, it still produces, out of the 300 kilowatt, we could be producing 50, 60 kilowatt in the depth of winter. And I would advise anyone that wanting to go into renewables to get going. It's certainly worth doing. Now, you know, you look at the saving there, but what we have invested in the renewable energy is immense. And going forwards, we have a lot more to invest. But as what this is all about today, I hope that we will get support in line with the Welsh Government's sort of view of becoming carbon neutral within, 26 years' time. There's a lot of work to be done, a lot of money to be spent. And I hope indeed we can all work together here, whatever, to get to that aim. So how much more time have I got? I've been told I can't have long. Yeah, I think going forwards, and if you see what we did, we started this project in 2017. We opened the caravan park 2017, and we've been building slowly every year. The caravan park and the Moody Cow came next. And then the fishing lake, we put fish in there. We moved on to doing we started with the Moody Calf in COVID days. They always say it's never an ill wind. And the men came in COVID days, local boys, and we actually built this with a leap of faith in COVID days. And the Moody Calf opened in August 21. And this building opened in the December of 21. And then 22, we expanded the Moody Cow. We doubled it in size and put a larger kitchen. Last year, we built the motel, which I can say is 11 rooms and suite. We are in the process of extending our caravan park. Now, in the caravan park, the original caravan park, we have 20 hot tubs, all in enclosures. They are all, as you'll see on the tour, they all emptied as soon as people go. They are sanitized and they fill back up with hot water, which you see the plant as we go along. And between 10:30 and 1 o'clock, we can empty 20 tubs and fill them back up with hot water and sanitize them all. They're all powered by renewable energy, and it works very well. Now, on the next site, we put in another 20 hot tubs on the 50 pitches, and each one will have a bathroom in the enclosure as well. All renewable energy to power it. That's why we need more renewables. And 5 lodges to go around the lake as well. Now, I'm hoping to get that done this spring, summer. We've also got a teenage barn that we are converting. That'll have all the trampolines and foam pits and climbing bars and all that. I'm hoping that'll be done by summer. We'll see how we go on that one. And then probably next year, year after, we're hoping to build a water park, which will be, it'll have the professional swimming pools, the disabled pools, and all the round pools, and all the river slides, they call them, whatever. It's quite a big thing, but it'll also give us the roofs to put the solar panels on. I'm hoping to stay away from ground mounted, but everything at the moment is roof mounted, and going forward, I'm hoping it'll be on the swimming pool complex, but let's see how we go. Now that's the aims we got here. This is what we got, and I look forward to showing you all what we on the tour later on. Indeed, thank you very much. I hope it's been interesting to you.
Yeah, here we go. Good morning. My name's David Price, Di Price, everyone calls me. Thank you for having me along this morning. So, going to tell you a little bit about Regional Skills Partnerships, why we exist, what we do, a little bit of a sales pitch from myself as well to get people involved in it. So what are Regional Skills Partnerships? We're part of the growing Mid Wales structure. There's 4 Regional Skills Partnership in Wales, one in Cardiff Capital Region, one in Swansea Bay, one in North Wales, and we are the Mid Wales Regional Skills Partnership Board. That's the high level Welsh Government explanation of what we are and what we do. But we align with all the city deals and growth deals. Locally, this is what our objectives are for Mid Wales. So we want to function as a partnership which supports business, bridge the gap between education and learning, and work with lots of businesses to help schools, education institutions to understand what the requirements are of your business. So that's why we exist in a nutshell. So we're the kind of the conduit between yourself as business and what you require for staff, skills, employees, and we'll try and articulate that to Welsh Government to inform change policy courses that are being delivered in colleges by training providers. But we can't do that without your support and your help and your information. So there's 4 things that we do constantly as a regional skills partnership, an RSP. So you might use RSP, that's what it means. We constantly produce and analyse labour market intelligence. So we're constantly looking at various sectors across Mid Wales, how they're performing, what their skills requirements are, what their staffing requirements are, and feeding that information back to Welsh Government and policy leads. But again, we have a lot of high level data, but we need to know from you as business owners, what is it actually you're seeing on the ground? How do we do that? So we have a structure of what we call cluster groups. So business sectors.
So that on the left-hand side, they're the sector groups that already exist that are running, that we talk to on a quarterly basis, and some we talk to on a weekly basis. So advanced manufacturing, engineering is high on the agenda. Construction and energy, obviously, is really important to us. Energy is in with construction at the moment, but energy is across every sector. Tourism and leisure, agriculture, health and social care, the list goes on. But there's a group that exists with business representatives on each of those groups. That group is open to everyone. So if you're a business owner and you want to be in that conversation, to tell us what your skills requirements are, and you want that fed back to Welsh Government, please come to us and get involved. Because if you don't, we can't complain about it. We can't moan about it in the background. We need to hear your voice. What those groups produce, I mentioned about reports back to Welsh Government, various things, lots of sector skills views. So we'll check sector skills views with those groups. We work with those groups around providing work placements for schools, careers guides. So we can better inform careers guidance in schools. Those groups will provide us with information to provide to schools. And then we also inform the work that goes on in the growth deals and Welsh Government. So that's kind of a visual of what we do. So we look at a lot of data. We talk to a lot of groups. We provide statistical, anecdotal, qualitative information, which creates evidence and intelligence that relates to actions. So what can those actions be? We could create new courses, new qualifications for your business, changes in legislation, and influence careers guidance. So how can we help as RSP? So I think I've probably touched on a lot of it, but just to summarize, work with businesses to understand the net zero agenda. So we really need to work with business for us to understand it so we can articulate that back. Work with Welsh Government to ensure support for skills is available in the region. So you need the right skills for your business. We need to influence training providers, FE colleges, and anyone else. And obviously then working with training providers and FE colleges, we do on a daily basis anyway. So how do you get in touch with us? So we've got an email address, midwalesrsp@powys.gov.uk. Just email us if you want to get involved in the conversation. We're more than happy to invite you along to whichever group you want to be a part of. And that's us.
Gyfer iawn, Dai, and I think that's those series of 3 presentations really only touch the surface of the support that's available. But I'll introduce Sandy as well from 7Y Energy Agency, who's joining the panel, though he hasn't done a presentation as such. They do deliver a range of support and funded programs to a lot of businesses across Mid Wales and the wider geography as well. So we are going to have a panel discussion now, and I've got Gemma with her roaming mic, which I've lost sight of, but she's somewhere in the crowd. Oh, there she is. Sorry, I saw you were over there, Gemma. I thought you went for a walk or something. With, yeah. No, so we've got time for a bit of questions now, and the panel will try and field them. So who wants to go first? Yep, at the back there.
Hi, my name is Chris Bailey. I'm a business development manager for a renewable energy project in Swansea University. I was just listening to the amazing developments for the farm and all of the different technologies, but there was an absent technology that I was interested in and learning if you'd considered more about solar thermal and how that might play a part in your energy generation systems alongside electricity, which is obviously more flexible.
What do you mean it's solar thermal?
So there's an opportunity to create energy directly from the sun for hot water rather than go to electric first, right? So
No.
but the ability to store it and things as well.
Yeah, all our energy, I could say the solar, is all on the roof. Okay, all PVs on the roof. We haven't got air source pumps. We haven't got any boreholes for any of the thermal sort of heat. We're all on the roof at the moment, and we have, I'm open to offers. How else we can produce heat and kilowatts, obviously, but then we use the batteries for storage excess kilowatts, and then the biofuels we use at the moment for the when we don't get any light, any sunlight, and that's really our full stop. Okay.
No. Any more questions at the front here, and then Rob then. Question. Oh yeah, she's nearly with you. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, I really like your analysis of what you're doing at here at Bargo, but you mentioned something about sourcing all your batteries from China. Can you talk us through why and how?
Well, where did I actually get them? I mean, these my electrician is sitting over there, whatever, and we work very closely with a company that produces or sells these batteries. And after going round and round and round, he eventually found this supplier, and they said this the lithium batteries, whatever, for China, the Pylon Tech batteries were probably some of the best in the market. And this is what they recommended. We had quotes on batteries, and this is where we landed. Now, even it took nearly a year to get them over here. So in probably 2 years, the market has probably opened up a lot more. So, you know, we're open to offers, whatever, going forward. And let's see what we do, because by the summer we'll have 650 kilowatt or battery storage. And the way we go in, we're going to need another 500 kilowatt before very long, or battery storage. So I'm looking at, looking at various options.
Just got to follow on from Sandy on that point.
It's an interesting point, and one of the difficulties in going on the zero carbon, low energy or renewable energy journey is it's often difficult to find out where you get stuff, right? So we've worked with cafes who are trying to get milk delivered that isn't in plastic containers. And actually the most useful thing is when somebody from a cafe goes, oh, there's a local farm down the road, we'll do it in metal churns. And suddenly all the other cafes go, oh, great, we'll do that. And then, of course, they do it round and it starts to become cheaper. But actually, this sort of conversation is really useful. And I would encourage everybody to talk to each other, because we're at the vanguard of this stuff. We don't know where the best batteries come from. We don't know where the best milk churns come from, whatever, so whatever business you're in, go and have a chat with others, because that's where you'll find out and work together to get the best suppliers and the best technologies.
Yeah, I got to add to that, and I'd say that the batteries, don't forget, they're 450 kilowatt in a big shipping container, and that's how they'd be put in China to come across the water. But the market is limited for that size of cube. Smaller batteries, yes, but for the bigger battery, it is a limited market. Yeah. And I keep looking all the time.
Got another question from Rob, and then I'll go to Alex from the NFU.
Robert Chapman. I'm a strategic property advisor. I'm based in Cardiff, but I am originally in Rh2 yn Nghanolbarth Cymru ar y fferm Teulu. Dydw I ddim yn diwylliant ysgysordwi. Rapid fire questions, if I may, Carwyn. Gareth, congratulations to you on being a leader, not a laggard. I'm currently working with a logistics company, HGVs, electric, no tailpipe. They have to be a leader because there are leaders and laggards. So congratulations to you. What's been your motivation? That's the question to you. What's been your motivation to do that and get on? Second question, with my property background, there's something called gap funding when it comes to property. And there will be those in the room who know what that means. And I'm kind of thinking there's a challenge around energy. Could there be a gap funding formula for energy between cost and value?
Okay,
and then,
yeah, sorry, go, yeah.
And then thirdly, finally, just on the subject of education, hugely important, and skills. As I was listening, I was thinking, how do we communicate the skills that we know we need and the skills that we don't know we don't know yet that we need, to education bodies and schools?
Okay, so there's three things in there. I'll go to Geraint first of all, and I'll hold to Sandy possibly on the gap funding piece, and then I'll go to Di on the skills bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, I hear about the skills, whatever, but my hearing, I'm afraid, is not the best. And
Motivation to get renewable energy.
yeah, well, two things. One, to become carbon neutral. The environment naturally is in our heart. And it does hurt me to see what's going around in Cardigan Bay with the amount of stuff we put in the seas and things like that. And you know, if you're a country person and environmentalist, you feel for all these things, whatever. But I think, you know, when you look at building a business like this, we're energy hungry, and you looked at the moment, to give an example, my energy bill per month would be in the region of £45,000 to £50,000 a month if I didn't have the renewable. So therefore, do they pay? Yeah, they pay. They pay. But you know, on this, I'll tell you that the batteries cost me £250,000 to bring in from China. The solar then is worth about £1,000 a kilowatt. Really. And the biofuel generators, you know, the clever things, they're up to about between 60 and 100,000 a piece. Now it's big investment for a long period of time, and you know, we do need the support. You know, the advice I can say, you know, that everything I've done here, we're very closely with Ceredigion Council, and you know, their advice and the help is immense. I've got to say that they are. It's very difficult. When I started this about 2018 to get the advice going forward. I rang Business Wales, they give me what they could then, but it's pretty new technology, and I'm learning every day, and I look still for the advice to help me go forward. I do know that very controversially, I'd say that I'm not a big battery person in vehicles. I think you know, we got to be mindful of where the lithium ion comes from, how it's mined, and indeed what the future is in producing it and mining it. And what do we do with the batteries at the end of the day? And I think these questions haven't been answered yet at all. The government are pushing batteries left, right, and centre. Battery cars, battery this. Where they can get the energy from to actually energise these things, I don't know. But the future, I feel, in the countryside especially, and commercial vehicles, is certainly not battery operated electric vehicles.
Some of this will come back in some of the second session as well about grid and overcoming constraints. But I'll move on to Sandy about the cost of actually implementing these solutions as well. And
yeah, and I mean, you were absolutely right. The gap funding is where there is a subsidy between the actual cost, the capital cost, and what you'll get back for it. The renewable energy has been kick-started by what was called the feed-in tariff. So you got very good funding up to 2015 for renewable energy. That's now created a market. What I would say is that many businesses now, particularly high energy users, are seeing a payback period of investment of 2 to 3 years. It was sort of 8 to 10 years, but when you've got it's less so in offices. If you're just running an office, then your payback period is longer. But actually, if you're in high energy use, catering, manufacturing, that kind of thing, we're seeing a payback period of 2 to 3 years. So I would say you don't need so much gap funding. What I wish there was gap funding for, though, is energy efficiency. And so it's great that you're generating energy renewably, but actually energy efficiency can have a more bang for its buck. But there isn't that subsidy at the moment for energy efficiency, and that's something I would like to see. Now, is there enough money in the Treasury to subsidise energy efficiency or renewables still? The answer is probably no, but should there be? Yes.
Depends where you are.
Yeah.
Depends.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Depends what your parameters are. Can we afford not to? Is the other side
Well,
of that question as well?
yeah.
So we move on to skills then, and Di.
Yeah, just to answer your question around informed education. So obviously, if you've got relationships with training providers, local colleges, schools, they're always open to listening. You know, they're pretty engaging. But the structure I talked about the regional skills partnerships, that's the structure to bring it through, because it's a collective voice then being fed back to Welsh Government and other providers. coming along to those groups and giving those views, we already captured, you're right, the skills that exist, what we know about. We do a lot of intelligence gathering around what the future could look like by 2028. So we have got sort of intelligence looking as far as 2028, where we're taking some pretty good, sensible guesses, I suppose. But that's going to be informed by the people who work on the ground. So come to the regional skills partnership groups and feed whatever information you have in, and we'll inform schools and everyone else.
Diolch, Dai. I have been informed by a colleague I've got about a minute left. So I've got one final question from Aled from the NFU in the front there.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, Geraint. You mentioned that you were adopting a carbon calculator. Inherently, these calculators are focused on emissions. Now, the word net zero has also been mentioned by members of the panel, and inherently net means the difference between emissions and then sequestration. In Mid Wales, with so many thousands of farming businesses, are we losing out the opportunity, a business opportunity on farms across Wales to be part of that carbon market? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we have worked out what we offset in carbon. And for this particular business, it's absolutely immense. If you look at the solar panels alone, and you look at the slides we produced, it's many thousands of trees, it's equivalent to planted. And we have planted here ourselves, I think up to about 10,000 trees. And we keep planting every year. But the carbon offset is immense. And it's something that farming is going to consider more. It's no wonder the Welsh government go on about the the carbon neutrality and the way forward, whatever, and wanting every farm to plant trees and all that. I think there's got to be a compromise between the Welsh government and farming, whatever. We could have started working out our carbon offsetting and what more we can do to offset it, whatever. Sorry?
More than trees.
Absolutely, more trees, absolutely. But look what we're doing to offset the carbon.
Yeah.
The solar panels alone, they offset a humongous amount of carbon.
I'll take a final comment from somebody on this topic.
So this is interesting. So we, in another part of our work, we are developing a biochar plant up in just south of Liverpool, but we're also working with Mid Wales on the potential sites for a biochar plant. So what that does is sequester carbon. So it actually takes carbon out of the system by, it's a technical process, but called pyrolyzing any organic waste. So it could be offcuts from the timber industry, furniture industry, sewage sludge, that kind of thing. And actually your national, even international expert is sat at the back. He's a guy called Alex. Our business person couldn't be here today to sign you up if anybody's interested in getting support from us about how to reduce energy use in your business. However, if you are interested, Alex is absolutely your man, because we are developing, it will be the country's first effectively carbon capturing power station, and we're experimenting with it up in Liverpool, but the idea is that we're working with Mid Wales to look at potential sites here which absolutely would work with farms and the agricultural industry. So please come and have a chat.
Yeah, diolch, Sandy. I feel kind of bad for cutting that conversation a bit short now, but we are short on time. But I think the golden thread throughout a lot of that is there is support available in the sort of near term for businesses, but clearly there'll be limitations to the support that's available now. There'll be limitations to the support in terms of advice, because we are talking about sort of very new technology and it is difficult, but also the cost element. But I think the message around that is to continue the conversations. And I think particularly on that particular last point is, again, if there is an opportunity, then we should all be doing everything we can to explore what that opportunity looks like. How can we apply it? Because ultimately, if we all take, similar to the climate change and net zero agenda, I suppose, if we expect someone else above us to solve it for us, likelihood it won't happen. Okay, we'll move on. Can I thank our panelists and speakers in this session? I'll ask you to leave now and swap places with the second session. So diolch yn fawr. So up next, we've got overcoming grid constraints. So we've got three presentations. We've got Mark, Rachel and Catherine. So if the three of you can make your way up to the stage, and also joined by Lewis from Wales and West Utilities as well on the panel. So similar format, series of three quick presentations and a quick discussion afterwards as well. Grid is a big issue in Mid Wales. We discuss it often, but I suppose the sort of next series of presentations will talk about the work that the DNOs are doing in this space as well. So I got Mark up first, then Rachel, then Catherine. Over to you, Mark.
Morning. My name is Mark Perry. I'm from National Grid Electricity Transmission. So we mentioned their distribution, but I'm actually from the transmission side of things. And I'm just going to give a very high level overview of some work that we're doing across transmission and across distribution and with Welsh Government, looking at how we can resolve some of the network issues going forward. Got this right. So just to give a little bit of context, just a couple of bullet points from Welsh Government. So Welsh Government has got significant ambitions in terms of renewable generation, and they are looking to, for 2035, that all of the electricity energy consumed in Wales will be generated by renewables. They're also very keen that a lot of the generation is locally owned. So rather than sort of big commercial generators, there's a large part of community ownership in Wales. Now, there's a couple of numbers up there. I thought it might be worth just mentioning what these sorts of things mean, because I don't know sort of how familiar people are. But when we talk about a gigawatt of energy, a gigawatt of electricity, very approximately, in Britain, there are about 60 million people, and very approximately, our peak demand is 60 gigawatts. So a city of 1 million people will consume about a gigawatt of energy. So that's the sort of number. So London, 10 million people is 10 gigawatts. Cardiff, 500,000 people, half a gigawatt. That's sort of how the numbers pan out. So the Welsh Government ambition is by 2030 to have 1 gigawatt of generation owned by communities, and by 2035 to have 1.5 gigawatts. And they're making good progress towards that. So looking at the numbers, so we've got 59% of electrical energy is currently met by renewables. So, going the right way. And 97% of the 2030 target has been achieved for community ownership of renewable generation. However, the government has been looking at how they can go on beyond that and meet their sort of long-term 2050 targets for net zero, etc. And they've identified that the lack of electricity infrastructure in Wales is a significant barrier to doing that. So they've had work done by the industry, but also by sort of independent consultants looking at how housing might develop in the future, how EVs might come along, what potential growth in energy need will be, and matching that with the network capabilities we currently have. And there is a deficiency that's been identified. So the Welsh Government has established some work. There's a number of groups being led, looking at how we can take that forward, how we can best develop infrastructure, and importantly, how we can coordinate infrastructure. Because we don't want haphazard development, which will come up with a lot of developments. We want to optimise it to minimise the amount of infrastructure that we put in place, but to make sure it's most effective. So this sort of highlights the problem that's been mentioned a couple of times. That's the transmission system in Wales. We have some transmission in North Wales. We have some transmission in South Wales, but the Mid Wales is a big blank. That's where we are at the moment. Just for information on that, the blue lines are 400,000 volt lines. The red lines are 275, and the squares are substations where we can either connect generation or we can connect demand. Principally, demand connections are through the DNOs, who connect to us and then distribute. Increasingly, though, we're seeing bigger demands come along and connect to us directly. So data centres are large demands, and I'm sure people are familiar with things like Tata Steel looking at electric furnaces and things. So they might connect to us directly. Principally, though, it's DNOs. So as you can see, there's nothing in Mid Wales at the moment. Going forward, we've already got contracts to connect a lot of new generation in North Wales. A lot of that is offshore in sort of Morecambe Bay and around there, around Anglesey. There's a lot of wind farms already developed, and there are more in development. What we've got contracted to connect will take us beyond the capacity of the network we have. So we've got lots of plans to upgrade the network that exists, to reconduct it with more capable conductors, etc. But we can't take it to the level that we need to take it just using the existing infrastructure. So we're going to have to build a new circuit out in North Wales. We've also got some significant contracts for generation in South Wales. So people might be aware of the Celtic Sea generation, the floating offshore wind. And as I mentioned, some large demands coming along. There are demand centres, data processing centres and things like Tata Steel. So we've got big connections contracted in both North Wales and South Wales. In Mid Wales, there's a bit of a chicken and egg situation. People don't seem to be bringing forward big projects because there's nothing to connect to. And we haven't got a signal to build anything at the moment because there's nothing coming forward. So we've got some connections contracted, but not a significant number. And our understanding is that there is a lot more pent up sort of demand and generation in Mid Wales that would connect if there was infrastructure available. So looking at what that means for the network, in North Wales, our principal problem is getting energy out of North Wales. So we can do that a number of ways. So we could take a circuit straight into England and connect it to the network as it is. We could take a circuit through Mid Wales and connect it somewhere in the south. Or we could actually go offshore and loop it round and come in South Wales or Cornwall. There are a number of ways we can get power out of North Wales to solve the North Wales problem. In South Wales, we believe the network is sufficient for the contracts that we have in place at the moment. You know, there are a number of power stations that are closed in South Wales, and therefore it's freed up some capacity. So we think we can connect the offshore wind and the large demand in South Wales without the need, certainly for a new circuit. We might have to do some upgrades, we might have to do some infrastructure tweaks, but no new circuits are required in South Wales for the contracts we have. What we do know, though, is it's quite close to the limit. So if we were to bring another circuit into South Wales, if we were, to connect North Wales down to the south and bring power from the north into the south, that might trigger the need for further infrastructure development, which wouldn't be ideal. In Mid Wales, as I said, we've got nothing at the moment. So we're looking at, can we do something in Mid Wales that will allow us to sort of develop generation and demand connections. And we're working with our colleagues in the DNOs to look at where we might route that. So we know that we need something in North Wales. We know that we probably don't want something in South Wales. So if we're going to take a line through Wales, we're now looking at various options for taking that forward. Only at a very high level at the moment. There are no firm plans. We're just talking about it. So there are a couple of obvious options there. We could build a line down through Wales and then at some point veer off towards England. We could go offshore and then come onshore and cross Mid Wales. There are options we're looking at, but we are looking at ways in which we can provide new capacity in Wales to allow for generation and demand connections. One of the key things is that if we did it just through the DNOs and through generators building their own connections, we would end up probably with many more circuits. Because what we think is that going forward, the amount of generation that's likely to come forward, the amount of demand that's likely to grow, is within the capability of a transmission circuit. It's not within the capability of a single DNO circuit, but it is within the capability of a transmission circuit. So it looks like using a transmission circuit will be an optimized way of developing that infrastructure. And along the line that we build, we can put a number of substations, we can allow the DNOs to connect, we can allow generators to connect, and we can optimize that and minimize the total amount of infrastructure. So this is just things that we're at the moment thinking about from a very high level. So there are three things that we think a new circuit could do in Wales. Obviously, we could allow generation in Wales to support demand in Wales, one of the government's main targets. At times when there is more generation in Wales than demand, we could export power from Wales to the rest of the system, and vice versa. On days when it's still in Wales and that there's not much wind, perhaps not much solar, and you've got high demand because you've got EVs and things, we could bring power into Wales from England through a new circuit. So we think it works all ways and would be beneficial both to Wales and the wider network. So my final slide is just about how we're taking this forward, and I think I've touched on this anyway. So we're talking very much to our colleagues in the DNOs about how we can optimise the infrastructure between us. We're trying to understand the level of generation that might come forward. So we're doing some work with Renewable Cymru, who are working with all the generators to say, where might you develop generation? What sort of capacities are you talking about, to give us a bit of an anticipatory need? We're working with the Welsh Government, they're coordinating a lot of our work. And then we're also talking to other communities. So we have no firm plans at the moment, but as we develop them, we will start to engage with communities and landholders and so forth. We're looking possibly by the end of this year to have a bit of an idea of what we're going to do, and then we'll bring it forward next year for consultation. Hand over to Rachel.
Thanks everyone. So hi, I'm Rachel Shawnee. I'm the Strategic Optimization Manager for SPNG Networks. So SPNG Networks is the DNO in the north part. So we look at it with the old ManWeb effectively, so Merseyside and North Wales electricity board. So we cover like the north part of Powys and Ceredigion. And we're, as Mark said, we're working really closely with NGET and with NGED to make sure that we're preparing for the future network needs. So on that note, on that joint collaboration, we've been working closely with our transmission and distribution network operators and Welsh Government now for about 5-6 years. Welsh Government set up a group called Energy Networks in Wales Group, which is a strategic group looking at the requirements for gas distribution network gas and electricity networks across Wales, and it's been a really useful group for us to understand what is actually required going forward. So all of our networks were built and designed in the 1950s, 1960s of the last century, and since then we've had huge levels of growth as investment has come into the network, but also since then we've had a lot of renewable generation connections connected to the network. So the network runs differently now, and it's had to change since it was originally designed. And what we're all doing now is trying to work out what the next change is on the network and be prepared for that, because some of these big infrastructure projects take a long time to build. So the more that we can try and foresee that future and actually design a network, both gas and electricity, that is required for the future, then it means that we can do a one size fits all rather than having to build extension after extension. And as Mark said earlier, if we do build some of these smaller overhead lines and substations, cables that are then not fit for purpose in 10 years' time, it means we need to build more infrastructure. So what we're all collectively trying to do is make sure that we have one solution that fits everything across the whole of Wales. And fitting into the UK energy infrastructure as well. So it's been really useful, the Energy Networks in Wales group, and we published about 18 months ago the Future Grid Study. So this is a Welsh Government document that's published on their website, but we're very proud of this because we, as collectively as gas and electricity network operators, put a lot of time into that, and it really does tell a good story about the requirements moving forwards. Alongside that, we've also been working with the National Infrastructure Commission for Wales, along with Welsh Government, to try and determine what is required. And that was a little bit different. The remit from the National Infrastructure Commission was, in an ideal world, if cost wasn't a problem, what would you like to see on the networks in 80 years' time? So not planning for 2050 for net zero, but planning for 2100. So that was a really interesting project that Catherine and myself and people from Wales and West Utilities were involved in, and that was incredibly useful for us to understand what the future needs are for generation, storage, hydrogen, everything going forwards onto our network. So there's a lot of information already available on the Welsh Government website and also the National Infrastructure Commission for Wales website on some of those reports, and it details some of the work that we've collectively completed there. So there's some bedroom time reading if anyone's interested. But that has been a significant part of our work going forward to try and plan for the future network needs, so that we're all doing one solution for the future rather than lots of different plans that don't necessarily tie in. So one of the other things that we're working on collectively at the moment as the electricity networks operator, so in this room here you've got SPNG Networks and National Grid Electricity Distribution. So we're the DNO for North and Mid Wales and Mid Wales and South Wales. But across the UK there's 6 distribution network operators, and we all look after the distribution voltage, so from 132 kV and below. So National Grid Electricity Transmission look after the bigger, the motorways effectively, and then we've got the smaller roads taking it around to each individual town. And as we've talked previously, there's a lot of generation and battery storage already connected onto our network that it wasn't necessarily designed for when we originally built the network back in the 1900s. So Collectively across the UK, there is a lot of projects that are trying to be connected to the network, that we've got constrained areas where we need to reinforce the network and build more infrastructure in order to connect it. So we're all working together through the Energy Networks Association, and there's a group called the Strategic Connections Group, which is specifically looking at how can we connect as much as possible before we need to do further reinforcement. So both of these things are going alongside each other. We're planning for the longer term by what do we need to build new, and we need to start now to be ready for 2050, but we're also looking at how can we facilitate some of these connections projects while we're still building the further infrastructure. So there's a lot of work that we've done in the background to try and realign the queue. And it used to be that whoever applied first got connected first, and we're now completely changing that around, and we're looking for the shovel-ready projects. If they're ready, if they've got their planning, if they've got their funding, then they get connected over and above somebody who's still waiting for their planning and still waiting for their funding, so that hopefully it releases some of these projects that actually can't get connected because other people applied first in the queue. So we're changing that whole remit to try and get projects moving as quickly as possible. Some of the other things that we're doing is working around the difference between battery storage and generation. So it's all distributed energy resources these days, but we've got new guidelines on how we can cope with that and how much we can allow that onto our network in our existing situation. So we're trying as much as possible to get some of this connected. And then there's things like that that we're doing to try and move on and to try and help people who want to connect onto our network while we're building the bigger infrastructure. So Catherine will talk more about distribution future energy scenarios in her session, and how, more importantly, they're included into the local area energy planning process, so that we've been actively involved in all of the leaps, which then means that we feed that information into our distribution future energy scenarios, and then following on from there into our network development plan. I'm not going to talk about these too much because this information is all available on our website, so we can share that with more information in the breakouts. Also available on both of our networks is the open data portal. So we've got a huge amount of information now available for customers who want to know how to connect. So it's all available on our website. So Catherine and I can give more detail on that future. And then just the contact us page, which I think is for Catherine to talk about later. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Thomas and I'm the DSO Strategic Engagement Officer for National Grid Electricity Distribution. Just to follow on from Rachel, I would like to give you a brief insight into how we receive revenue for investment, an overview of our strategic planning process, and also why stakeholder engagement is so important to us. Both Rachel and I are responsible for proactively engaging with stakeholder groups involved with local area energy planning and decarbonisation plans. We need to capture the ambitions of our stakeholders accurately and analyse the levels of growth within each local authority area. The outputs of the local area energy plans will be used as additional input into our distribution future energy scenario projections, which inform strategic investment in our network. This will ensure that our strategic network planning provides sufficient capacity for the transition to net zero, ensuring we invest in the right areas of the network, utilising local knowledge and plans to provide high certainty forecasts. In the next 30 years, the way the electricity distribution network is used is going to change as we use electricity to decarbonise sectors such as domestic heat, transport and the electricity generation mix. Our vision is to enable and coordinate a smart, flexible energy system that facilitates local decarbonisation for all our customers and communities at the right time and the lowest cost. We are committed to evolving and improving how we collaborate and coordinate the local energy transition across the whole system in partnership with key stakeholders, working together in order to identify network improvements required for decarbonisation. We are taking a more strategic approach to how we design and build up the distribution network going forward, with strategic investment that is evidence-based. This approach is based upon open and transparent conversations about our network and doing all we can to support our stakeholders achieve their decarbonisation aspirations. In order to deliver the scale of growth required to meet national and local decarbonisation targets, changes have been made into how we invest in the network. Lots of work has been going on in the background with several policy and regulatory changes, which Rachel and Mark have previously touched upon. Strategic investment is required to ensure that the distribution network is not a barrier to decarbonisation. Putting more of a focus on planning for the future and developing different ways of solving constraints should mean that we can build our network in the most coordinated way possible. I think it's important to spend a little time just to explain how we receive revenue for investment. This context may be well understood by many here today, but I feel it's worth noting in terms of the parameters we're working within. We are regulated by Ofgem, who are responsible for setting how much revenue we can earn and what we must deliver to earn it. We work in what's known as price control periods, which are based upon business plan submissions that set out what investment we plan to make in the network over that period. We started our business RIIO-ED2 business plan in April 2023. And when we're talking strategic investment, what we're really talking about is load-related expenditure, spending money to increase the capacity of the network. Load-related expenditure is covered through bill payers. So in short, it's bill payers' money that's being used to reinforce our network. This is why it's so very important that we ensure that any money that's spent is done so as well as possible. Whilst we have regulatory settlement for this category, we do have access to what's known as uncertainty mechanisms within the price control. These are for when we see a need to invest more than the allowances, which we've already been given. And this has to be justified and approved by Ofgem as part of what we call a reopener or as part of a volume driver, which actually means the more work we have done with justification means we can do more. This is why it's so important to understand your local energy ambitions. Our next slide is to do with our strategic planning process, and I think it's good for me to give you a little overview in regard to this process, as this shows how we can best answer the question, how a network is going to be fit for a net zero future. As part of this, we need to ensure we engage with all stakeholders at all stages of the process. The Distribution Future Energy Scenarios process, or DFES for short, is the first step for our strategic planning process, which outlines the range of credible futures for the growth of the network. It's an annual process to assess the growth projections of different customers and technologies that are looking to connect to the distribution network. Projections are built using a bottom-up approach with stakeholder input, which allows high granularity of scenario projections. We then carry out strategic network analysis using DFES load sets to identify potential constraints. Once the focus has been run through the network impact assessment and a constraint has been identified in a future year, we then identify optimal solutions to the constraints, using flexibility first where appropriate or network reinforcement where required. Flexibility can allow reinforcement to be deferred or remain as an enduring solution, saving bill payers money. If flexibility is not suitable, then reinforcement commences in the timescale aligned to when the constraint will arise. By following this process, we can demonstrate we understand the electricity needs of customers now and into the future and are able to develop the network in an economic, efficient and coordinated manner. As previously mentioned, our DFES analysis is carried out on an annual basis to ensure that we have the most accurate focus, and this is why regular engagement with businesses, local authorities and other stakeholder groups such as industry and community energy groups is so important. Early and regular engagement with stakeholders is essential to the success of achieving the transition to net zero. So to ensure our customers and stakeholders are receiving the best service from the company, we have set up 3 specialist surgeries to help you with your inquiries. Our net zero surgery is there to support local area energy planning and decarbonisation planning. Our community energy surgery is to discuss the network and possible community energy group applications. And then our connection surgery is to discuss specific applications for new connection that a customer intends to make in the near term. Surgeries provide more detail to help you understand the process, the timescales and technical considerations. Discussing your plans for this at an early stage can help to provide a better insight into any potential network reinforcement or complexity issues that may arise. It can also help you to establish the viability of an individual scheme before committing to a formal application and incurring associated costs. You can arrange a surgery online or alternatively by ringing our call centre. SP Energy Networks have a similar process where you can contact them via the details shown on their slide. Thank you for listening. I hope the information has been informative and helpful to you. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Catherine, and yet another good, excellent series of presentations there around the grid. So we'll have Mark, Rachel and Catherine now on the panel and joined with Lewis. Same format as before. If you want to ask a question, introduce who you are, and we'll try and keep the answers brief so I can get it through as many questions as possible. First one from Brian at the front here.
Thank you very much for your speeches. I know a little bit about the industry. Used to be a lines runner myself anyway, and I'm also a farmer with 50 kilowatt turbine at home as well anyway. The issue I can see as a local councillor as well, micro generation, they're not coming forward because of the limitations on the 11 kV network. I'm not talking about the 132, 275 or 400s. There's 2 major investments in this area back in the 60s with the electrification schemes, and also following the snowstorms in the 80s. We spent a lot of time upgrading the systems then, but I can't see that investment in the last years. So would you look at the 11 kV network to start off with, because there's a massive areas within Ceredigion where there is not even 3-phase. For that micro generation, I think you need to perhaps open your eyes, because we are not Swansea, we are not Wrexham. We are totally different in this area.
Just to answer that question, from the distribution systems operator side on NGED, we have actually set up a secondary reinforcement team who are looking at all our MKV distribution subs, analysing using DFES load sets, the amount of anticipated capacity for the future, and actually upgrading now prior to those connections being made. I think there's a 1.25 million being set aside to look at our secondary system, and that's proactively happening now, so that hopefully in the future, when it comes to a lot of the LCTs connecting to the network and things, there won't be an issue.
Yeah, just so the 2 maps that I showed in the network development plan. So both of us, NGED and SPEN, have got funding in this 5-year period to actually reinforce those low voltages. The LV network that goes down each street, the high voltage network and the extra high voltage network. And it's detailed in both of our network development plans what we're planning to do. But just to let you know that sort of like the Aberystwyth Midland patch, which is SPEN, is actually fed from Swansea. So it comes all the way up through and into sort of like our area, and National Grid Electricity Distribution are actually reinforcing a lot of that network so that we can get more capacity on our side as well. And we've got plans for the primary network and the 11 kV network in that area so that it's all tied in with their reinforcement and our reinforcement. So by the end of 27, beginning of 2028, all of that funding will have been completed and that capacity will be released.
I've got another question at the front here by Rob.
Yeah, hi, Robert Chapman. So I'm kind of thinking of levelling up, and that gives a sense of fairness. And I'm thinking about a windfall tax that could support, you know, a windfall tax hitting the fossil fuel companies to generate a large sum of money to invest in electric infrastructure, because that's what's been talked about here. And with that in mind, I'm thinking about fast tracking infrastructure in Mid Wales. And are you able to fast track CPO, compulsory purchase order powers, to enable you to deliver infrastructure in Mid Wales more quickly?
So that planning is a large conversational topic. So we are allowed to fast track funding, and there's a mechanism. So we're in our electricity distribution price review period at the moment from, as Catherine said, April 2023 until March 2028. So we have our funding for the reinforcement that we've predicted we already need in that area. But we also have an opportunity now where we can highlight if there's a specific area that needs more reinforcement over and above that funding we've got for the 5-year period. We're then allowed to have this reopener with Ofgem where we can discuss it. And if we can prove the evidence base that we need more reinforcement within that 5-year period, then yes, we can get that approved through Ofgem. But we're already looking at longer term going into electricity distribution 3 and working with NGET for their transmission network reinforcement to be able to understand what we need post 2028 onwards at the moment. One of the big things that we don't get involved in at the moment is those central contracts, because our relationship is with the regulator, and the regulator deals with the supply customers on a different side. We're completely separate as the networks. But one of the things that we're really keen to do at the moment, so we're working closely with Welsh Government on this Energy Networks in Wales group. And one of the big things for that, for us from a planning perspective, is getting the planning for the projects that we know we need to do. So Welsh Government have the remit for planning consents for 132 kV and below, whereas if it's a transmission network planning consent, then it needs to go to UK Government. So we're working with both UK Government and Welsh Government to actually try and align the requirements going forward for the planning to, once we've got the funding for the project, it's then actually getting it through the planning and being able to build it as well.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions from the table in the back, so yeah.
Thank you. It's Chris from Swansea University again, a specific project. Just to go a bit of background quickly, I'm not here War and Peace, but the project I work for came up with the active buildings concept and developed buildings that should be an active participant in the network and being able to import and export, respond to price signals, and being able to be a flexible asset, not just a net consumer of energy. And one of the things that has been demonstrated with that capability, and something that all buildings can be adapted to do, is to play that role if they have flexible assets like batteries and PV. Historically, we've fitted these generation systems, typically before storage, as a priority to make revenue for the individual systems. But actually, if we're fitting those systems as a priority self-consumer of that energy, then in adding PV and storage, we actually create network resilience and distributed energy generation, right? So yes, we do need to upgrade the network for larger consumers in certain areas, but actually, if we can encourage individuals, homeowners, businesses in this area to fit solar PV and batteries, we can create more resilience, not less, more stability, not less stability. But it's critical that we control that energy in the right way, as in there's still going to be this drive to try and generate revenue, so net export for revenue. But actually, if we can control that in the right way, I know this is a big topic, so I'm not, but do you think there's something we can do locally to either through funding or through smart, engagement to be able to drive people to do that for that purpose rather than for generating revenue?
So music to our ears, absolutely. So when for like solar generation and PV on rooftops first came in with the feed-in tariffs, it was all about export onto the grid, and the feed-in tariffs, once they dropped, then people were complaining it wasn't financially viable anymore. Now we've seen a massive uptake again because as energy prices have risen, if people can actually generate their own electricity on their roof and use it and not even export it to the network, but actually just use it themselves, it reduces down their demand and they're paying less on their own electricity bill. So they're making more money by using it locally themselves than they are from exporting it to the grid. And that is music to our ears, because the more that people use locally, the better, because we will always have to build more infrastructure. We need to plan for the future and plan for some of the larger decarbonisation projects. But if every single individual customer uses what they have locally and have battery storage as well to level out that peak demand, that's easier for us to then prepare for the bigger projects on the network. But also it means that for each community, that if we're using everything locally, either on the low voltage or the 11 kV spur lines and main lines going from town to town, then it means that we need to reinforce less, which means then that we have less impact on each of those individual communities. So we're really keen to get involved in those projects, and Catherine and I work closely with Ynni Cymru, which is an arm of Welsh Government which has been set up to try and regenerate some of these community projects. So some of these haven't necessarily gone ahead in the past because they're not financially viable, and Ynni Cymru are re-looking at those to try and resurrect some of those and to get more local generation connected. So absolutely, we couldn't have planted a better question in the audience. Thank you very much.
£5 at lunch break after the get another question at the back. I'll see how we are with time. Yep.
Yeah, okay, so obviously I'm very, very interested in that last question. I'm John Davis here with Ebon Holidays today, small tourism enterprise and farming. What a fantastic example we have here today, because Chris and Geraint, they don't just talk about it, they do it, don't they? And focusing on how they found a solution here now today, because I was worried with our first speaker, you know, the title is Growing Mid Wales today, and obviously a large part of Mid Wales there was completely blank. Obviously, it's not about your network, I guess, for the very large majority of us here today. It's about that small scale generation and use. So how do we create a vision and ambition to deliver that? You know, in a past job, I used to travel around Europe looking at different farms. Many farms, 18,000 farms here in Wales, have spare shed roofs. Many operations such as this have spare shed roofs. How do we create that agenda so that we facilitate local production and storage? Because at the moment the network's failing. You know, our ambition was to be net zero. We talked about strengthening our connection. We are so pleased to see 10 Teslas driving down the road last week with a large multinational company. Wasn't so chuffed to see 10 extension leads going out from the things. You know, when we applied to have fast chargers, told no, not possible. When we applied then to put more capacity in, only less than 4 kilowatts were allowed to put back into the grid. So, you know, Gary's solution here today has been to go off grid, really. How do we do more of that to allow you guys to do what you need to do, I guess? So we've got to look how we support and facilitate that, I would suggest, because at present we haven't got a hope in hell of hitting the 2035 target unless we do something different.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Diolch, John. So I had to remind the time's up, so we'll just have, I think, give opportunity for colleagues to respond to some of that's on me, I think, as well. So does anyone want to?
No, that's fine. I'm conscious that I'm doing all the talking, so apologies, everyone. But I mean, that's why things like today are so important, because we are here. Catherine and I, we're open for business. We want to talk to small customers in this area who don't necessarily understand some of the bigger connections that have sort of like multinational groups behind them. They know the process, they know how to connect to our network, whereas some of these smaller customers don't necessarily know how to do it. It'll be the first time. Catherine mentioned the connection surgeries before. We both run them, SPEN and Enged run connection surgeries. We both also have a community energy group. So there's an arm of our business that looks after community energy, and we both work very closely with Community Energy Wales to help support groups as well. So we also look at the strategic optioneering, so that we work with local authorities to help support them understand what they can do to support local businesses. So we're here, we're open for business, we're keen to talk to people about it.
Mark Lewis, have you got any comments to close or anything you feel you want to add onto that? Just conscious.
No, I think I just sort of emphasise what has been said already. I think it's really important for us that some of the challenges we have from a national grid point of view and GET point of view is it takes a long time to build our infrastructure, and it's very expensive to do it. So there is a big pressure for us to be really confident about what we're doing and it's the right thing before we get going. And that's been one of the blockers to getting things done. So understanding what the future is going to be in terms of, what will demand be? Will it be locked off by batteries? How much embedded generation? Because it all aggregates up. It might all connect and be in our network, but it aggregates up. So what we're really trying to understand is actually what will the network need be in 2035 and 2040? Because we don't want to start building something now which is going to be redundant with all the impacts of that. Equally, I think we've been guilty in the past of waiting until we've got too much certainty before we get going, and it's how we strike that balance. And that's speaking to people like yourselves, all these ideas that people have got about how to do things. What we need to understand is, what does that mean? How can that come together and give us some confidence?
I think that may be a good point to close it then, in terms of, I think, and just to answer to your point, John, I think we all need to row in the same direction. There's a lot of conversations that we all have. There's a lot of frustrations by individual businesses, local authorities. We look at our corporate estates, look at our county farms. We've got a lot of opportunities, but also I can think the same limitations as well in the short term. And a lot of, I think, credit to colleagues is, I think they want to engage. It is about, we may not be able to deliver it now, but let's plan for it for tomorrow. And I think from Mid Wales perspective as well, we haven't got that same agglomeration or aggregate voices from industry or businesses in the same way as other regions have. We're less noisy in a lot of ways, but whether you say politically or also in terms of the amount of voices we have. So I think that's where we come in as Growing Mid Wales and the local authorities, is to try and a lot of what Gemma has been doing in terms of net zero service to try and evidence that. So the golden thread across a lot of what I think we do as public sector in Mid Wales, working with Welsh Government and DNOs on the transmission side, is to evidence what's going on. Because I think if we allow the conversations to boil down to individual conversations and individual business owners, trying to invest and plan for the future, or we're slightly doing them a disservice as the public sector if we allow those conversations to effectively be shouting into the wind, in effect, aren't they? So it's our job is to try and aggregate those conversations and evidence that demand so it can effectively put things in place for the future. Now,